This lesson we're going to be looking at some higher order functions, in particular what we can do with arrays. So we're going to be looking at map, filter, and how we can output the results and then also reduce as pre-existing array methods. And then how we can create our own higher order functions within JavaScript. And these are going to be just functions that are going to be returning other functions, and then how we can use that code more dynamically and flexibly within our applications. This example, we're going to be using some higher order functions like map, filter, reduce in order to process arrays. So first of all, we're going to create an array, and this array will just have a bunch of different numbers in there. So it's just can be any array with any values within it. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using map in order to do a doubling of the numbers. So let's create a brand new array and then take the numbers array, and using map, we're going to iterate through all of the items that we have within the nums array, and we're going to take that value and return back a value times 2. So that's going to return back a double value of those initial values that we have within the nums array, and also log out within the console the nums array so that we can take a closer look at what we've got for the outputs. So that's the two arrays. This is the original array with the numbers starting at 1 going all the way to 8, and then the second array that we just created using the map allowed us to double the values of the numbers. So it's a really quick and easy way. So let's also do a filtering. So if we wanted to only get the numbers that are even within the numbers array, so we take the numbers array and then we're going to apply a filter to it. So getting the value within the arguments of the filter method, and then outputting the value, and we're going to be checking to see if it's got a remainder, so doing the %2, and if it's got a remainder that is 0, that means that the number is going to be even, and then we can output the new array that we've only got the even numbers into the console. So there we've got the values of 2, 4, 6, and 8. So you can also do this for odd as well. So we can copy what we just did, and instead of even, we can go odd and odd. So odd numbers are going to have a remainder. They're not going to have a remainder of 0. So we just need to update this to be not equal to 0. And we can use the 3 operators, and that will give us the odd numbers from the array. So there's also a reduce. So what reduce, we can create a sum of the values. So let's take the values and we're going to do a sum. So using the same numbers array and using the reduce method. So what we want to do, there's 2 arguments. So we're going to take the first value and then take the second value and return back those values. And actually we don't need to have the second because we're just having the one statement. So we're going to have the first value plus the second value and then return back an index value of 0. So let's console log out sum, and it will provide a more detailed explanation of what the results are. So the sum is actually going to be 36. So what actually happened here is that we had the number values, they were accumulating and starting at a value of 0 and adding all of the numbers together. So we added 1 plus 2 plus 3, so 6, 10, 15, 21, 28, and then 36 finally. So the higher order function takes one or more functions as arguments and returns the function as itself. So that's why we're able to construct new arrays from existing arrays. And the higher order functions are a fundamental concept in functional programming, and they're widely used in JavaScript in a number of ways. So let's take another example of a higher order function that takes a function as an argument. And we'll create the function, and this will be the function called repeat. So take in the parameters for whatever the operation is. And this is going to be a function that's going to be running. So that's the operation, and then whatever number that we want to use within the function code. And then here within the repeat function, what we'll do is we'll take a value and do a loop, so iterate through with a value of 0 and iterate through while we're less than the value of num. Num is the argument passed into the function. And then increment I by 1. And what we're going to do is then invoke the operation. So invoke the function that gets passed in. So create a function, and we'll just call it hello. And within this function, we'll console log the value of hello. So now what we can do is, in the new function that we just created, we can run through and do a repeat of the output. So this is going to be an example of a higher order function that we've just created. And let's run through the repeat function and whatever parameter that we want to pass in. So this is going to be the function that we want to run, which is going to output the console value into the console. And let's also take the argument into that value. And we'll use the template literals so we can make it a little bit more robust. So we want to repeat the function hello, and how many times do we want to repeat it? So 5 times. And let me just update this to be the semicolon. So that allows us to repeat the function 5 times. Let's make it a little bit more flexible, where we're passing a value, an argument. So whatever we've got for the value of I. And then instead of hello, I use the template literals, so the backticks. And we'll get whatever we've got as the dynamic value that's being passed in. And then this can just say hello as well. So that allows us to pass in a value. And as we're iterating through, then we're going to output those values. So we can also pass in a second value of, this would be just whatever the total is. And this is actually going to be coming from the initial, so the number value, and that's the total. So we could do something like this of, and that will give us the 0 of 5, or that's the index value. And if we do a +1 on that, that will give us 1 of 5, and the output of hello, 2 of 5, output of hello, and so on. So in the example, the repeat function takes 2 arguments, and the first argument is going to be the function that's going to get executed, and the second argument is going to be the number of times it gets executed. And the repeat function in this example is going to be executed 5 times, which results in the hello being output. And then as we saw, we could update adding in arguments within the new function that we've just created, and then logging out a more dynamic result into the output area. Let's do another example of a higher order function that returns a function as well. So let's create a function, and we'll call it greater. So it's going to take in the 1 argument of value, and it's going to return back a new function, anonymous function, taking the value of, so let's actually do an A and a B. So taking the second value and then returning back a Boolean value of whether B is greater than A. So it's going to let us know if the first number is greater than the second number. And then let's create that function greater than 10. And then here we can use the greater function and pass in a value for the initial number of 10. And then for the console, actually what we'll do is we'll create a loop in order to output some content, and loop through while it's less than 10, and then I plus 1. And what we'll do is we'll log out into the console and using the new function that we just created, so checking to see if it's greater than 10, and let's pass in a value of 5 plus whatever the value of I is. And we'll see what the results are. So the first set is going to be false, and then the second set is going to be true. So let's add this in as a template literal so that we can get a little bit more context within the output string. And here we can say that whatever the value, so creating that statement where we've got 5 plus I, 10. And so this is where we've got the results. So 14 is greater than 10, and that's going to be true. So 10 is not greater than 10 because 10 is equal to 10. So in the example, the greater than function takes a single argument and returns the new function that takes the second argument. So we're taking the first argument into the greater function, and then it's going to be checking that value, which in this case is going to be 10, against the value that we've got there. So we can make it even more dynamic. So our number value, and let's change that to 7. And now this is going to use whatever the num val. So making it completely dynamic. And also let's update the output within the console. So now we're going to get the result that 7 is greater than 7, which is false. 8 is greater than 7, which is true. So that allows us to have even more flexibility with the values that are being passed into the function. So in conclusion, the higher order functions are a powerful concept in JavaScript programming and are widely used in JavaScript for simple, complex tasks to make code more modular, flexible, reusable. And you can create your own higher order functions, or you can use pre-existing higher order functions that are already contained in JavaScript in order to manipulate arrays.